Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Canadian Multifamily Investing Insider Blog. I'm Pierre-Paul Turgeon, your host, Canada's multifamily mortgage broker. Yes, I'm a mortgage broker now, and all I do is multifamily properties, buildings of 5 or more units. As you know, I'm also a former CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation apartment building underwriter, and a full-time multifamily investor myself with a portfolio worth over $24 million. And I'm super stoked today to have here with me Jack Zhou of AJAC. Jack, welcome on board. Jack is an energy consultant, and that's what we want to talk about. How are you, Jack, today?
I'm great. Thank you for the invitation, Pierre. It's been amazing to be able to see you and meet with you and have this interview being done today. Really looking forward to it.
Well, likewise, because now I'm a mortgage broker. I look at multifamily investing, Jack, from a different angle, right? And of course, we're going to talk briefly about CMHC's latest, it's already 2021, so it's a few years, couple of years, but CMHC MLI Select program, which is an initiative by CMHC, my former employer, to create more affordable housing and give more flexibilities in terms of financing parameters. So there's 3 buckets. Let me introduce CMHC MLI Select. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I want to talk to you a little bit about, but Jack, basically, CMHC's program, one of the things they're trying to do is create affordable housing and then make more energy efficient housing as well and accessible. So the 3 sort of social outcomes that this new program is designed to encourage in Canada. And Jack comes in terms of confirming whether there are energy efficiencies to be had, and that's what we want to talk about. But Jack, before I get too deep into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What are your credentials? So your company is called A&J Energy Consultants. You're located in Richmond Hill, just north of Toronto. Tell us how you ended up being an energy consultant. You look very young for a guy who's been in the business. First time we see each other, I said, my gosh, you look young for a guy who's been doing this for 20 years. So what's your background a little bit in a few words, Jack, please?
All right, so I'll try to keep it short. So my background is in building science and have been working in low-rise residential construction since 2004. And I'm the first person to apply and to receive the Master Energy Advisor designation in Canada.
Whoa, that I did not know. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's currently 9 of us across Canada, and I'm just proud to be the first cohort of people to apply for it, first guy. So that's really awesome. Early in my career, I gained hands-on experience as a framer, insulator, drywaller, and I installed HVAC systems in houses. And I also do energy simulation, right? Which is, what an energy advisor kind of typically does. And then later on, I learned and earned the HRAI, so the Residential Air System Design Technician and Residential Hydronic Design Technician designations, and began designing HVAC systems and conducting energy audits for existing homes. That's really kind of how I spent my first, 10 years in this industry. Over the time, I learned many practices and techniques and skills to build houses more energy efficiently. So now I teach energy efficiency housing techniques through both private and public sector organizations, colleges and universities in Ontario, British Columbia, Republic of China, and South Korea. So I have done some traveling as well. Recent years, I'm serving as a technical committee member for the Ontario Home Builders Association, also with the Canadian Home Builders Association, also with Natural Resource Canada for their Energy Star for New Homes standard. And I am a board of director at the Canadian Associations of Consulting Energy Advisors, which is CACE. What I really is passionate about is I enjoy cost effectively accelerating the transition to sustainable housing. So this CMHC program that you just mentioned is totally within my passion and my wheelhouse. I love doing what I do. I really enjoy it.
Well, wow. Okay, that's impressive credentials there. I'm blown away by that. But one thing I know for sure, Jack, you're not going to run out of work anytime soon because what you do is so much. We're talking about becoming more environmentally sound and of course saving energy and so on, and of course at the same time also addressing the housing crisis. So you and I, it's just the beginning. You've done one job, I referred you to another one. This is just the beginning of this relationship, Jack. um, so I'm gonna expand a little bit more about MLI Select, CMHC MLI Select. Like I said, just to recap it, and by the way, you guys should look me up. I've got masterclasses coming up, free masterclasses, one of which is going to be solely on MLI Select and on financing your apartment buildings like a pro and cap rates and stuff like that, and attracting capital for your multifamily purchases. But MLI Select, like I said, came out in 2021. It has three goals: to help create affordable housing, to make housing more energy efficient, and the third bucket is to make housing more accessible for people with handicaps. In a nutshell, that's what MLI does. If you achieve these social outcomes, what happens is CMHC's financing criteria or underwriting becomes more flexible. For example, and I don't want to get too technical, that's the stuff I teach, as you probably know, I can imagine, Jack, in my classes, in my Canadian Multifamily Investing Blueprint workshop. For example, the minimum debt coverage ratio is 1.3 for CMHC standard, okay? When it's not CMHC MLI Select, this new program I just talked about. However, if you get financing insured by CMHC under that program, CMHC MLI Select, for example, the DCR, debt coverage ratio requirement, goes down from 1.3 to 1.1, for example. Another flexibility would be a longer amortization period. The longest amortization period under CMHC standard program would be 40 years, whereas if you apply under MLI Select, CMHC MLI Select, you qualify, you can go up to 50 years, okay? There's other things like that. So the premium, CMHC insurance premium, goes down as well, and all of that. So today, we're going to focus with Jack assistance on the energy efficient bucket of CMHC MLI Select. Jack, do you think there's any more in terms of introducing where you fit in this program? Is that proper? Do you want to add anything to that intro?
No, that's a great introduction already. I think we're going to get into too technical if we do more. What I do want to add, one thing is that energy efficiency can be very expensive and can be also very cost effective. So before you decide on how to make your buildings more energy efficient, this is the perfect time for someone like myself or a similar energy consultant in across Canada to help you figure out where is your low-hanging fruit, which technology or which product is more suitable for your building, because
Okay,
there's
that's
many
very.
things. Yeah, many things
Sorry,
we
go
have to
ahead.
consider.
So I think I interrupted you. My apologies. Of course, my head is going through questions now every time you talk. So, but did you finish that idea?
Yeah. So talk to us early on so that we can
Okay.
help you decide.
Because it's important, right? One thing I should say further about CMHC MLI Select, Jack, and that's something that I'm going to be learning with everybody in the audience today. It can apply to existing construction, so buildings that are already in existence for a number of years, and also new construction. So for me, before we started the interview, Jack, I was saying that's important to draw people's attention to that. So I think I'm inclined to start the conversation with the kind of portfolio I own. I own existing buildings. The majority of my buildings have been built between the 60s and some in the late 70s. So they're older buildings with the kind of technology that was being used at the time they were built. So when somebody has an existing property, let's again use buildings from the 60s. As you know, Jack, I think it's the same in Ontario. You still have these aluminum sliding windows and that kind of stuff. You know, the technology that were used back then, and maybe a cast iron boiler and all of that jazz, right, Jack? So that kind of stuff to heat up the building. What is your approach? So somebody wants to get to be able to qualify for CMHC MLI under the energy efficiency bucket or social outcome. And they have an existing building. What's the process that they need to do to get that certification, which I believe is what you give them, right? For an existing property. Let's start with an existing property, if you will, please.
Yeah, so for existing property, because the house or the building has already been built, we have to then perform a benchmark. And the benchmark is to identify how is the building being built currently. So there's a site visit involved, there's some inspections and some testing involved to collect the data so that we can then put it in an energy simulation to identify how you're performing. Are you really good? Are you really bad? Or you're horrible? I have done some really horrible houses, like very energy heavy, like the worst of the worst. So
let me guess, Jack. You know, it's the moment you say that, and I know you're from Richmond, but like I said, I know GTA fairly well. I'm thinking of these old buildings in, let's say, Hamilton, for example, that are 100 years of age. I must be something to do an energy simulation in one of those, eh?
the oldest building I have done is about 200 years old.
Okay. Okay.
Stone, like really leaky. I mean, air tightness wise, is like a barn. It's basically there's no air, there's no building envelope. It's and it's costing them so much money to just keep the place warm or like habitable. It's really insane how some of the conditions are over the years. So I really have a passion to make houses more energy efficient because I do believe in preserving the environment. Um, uh, Something you'll learn about me is I believe there's three homes we need to preserve. The first home is where our soul rests, and that's our body. So we have to eat well, sleep well, exercise to keep ourselves, healthy for our soul. The second one is like the home where we house our family because they're very important people in our lives. So that's the second home. And then the third home is our common home, Mother Earth. Like you and I are living on this planet, and it is our responsibility to take care of it because at the end of the day, we're using the resource that's on it. And when it's all gone, well, guess what? Earth will still be Earth, but there may be no longer humans. So let's take care of it so that it can take care of us as well. So that's really the try home. That's really what I really want to focus on. And
I
energy.
love it. Jack, I love it because I think I shared with you, I've been to China a couple of times and you got that Asian spirituality, which I absolutely, that's great. That's cool to hear that you're so passionate. And I like that about you. Wonderful. So, all right. So 3 levels of homes. Okay. And there's hope for these older buildings, like the 200-year old building. Can you make it energy efficient? And is that financially viable to do so for an older building? Maybe not, you don't have to use an extreme as old as 200 years of age, but something a bit newer. There's hope, and can it be done at a reasonable cost?
Your buildings in the 60s, definitely 100%. I have done a few net zero retrofits in the city of Toronto, and we have been able to convert these, 1940, 1920 houses into a net zero ready home or net zero energy home. So, and that will qualify to the highest standard within the MLI Select program. So yes, definitely, there's much hope out there. We just need more people to be aware of it and having someone like us to help them to get there.
And Jack, tell me, we forgot to mention one thing. Some of the flexibilities I mentioned earlier, there's a point system, all right, a scoring system. The more energy efficient you are, the more points you got. I'm looking, do you know those off the top of your head?
Yes, I do. I remember.
30 points, right, Jack? 30,
Yes,
and then 50, and then 100 points, which is the highest, right?
that's correct. Yeah.
That's kind of it. Okay, so the more energy efficient. So why don't we start about the energy simulation? I did something like that for my house recently. Why don't you walk us through that process very briefly? How do you ascertain how leaky and, because that's what you said, you start with establishing a benchmark. So I'm assuming
That's
it's
right.
sealing the house and doing all that jazz. I'll let you talk about
That's
that.
right.
I think I'm on the right track there. Confirmed, but
Yeah.
I think that's how you do it, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So for an existing building, usually what happens is we got to go on site, take photos so that we can document the existing condition of the home. And then usually we'll have to determine like how the building envelope is built. So for houses in Toronto, like 1920, typically there's like double brick or no insulation, right? In the 60s, there is some insulation. A lot of times there's like very little insulation in the attic, some insulation in the walls. Our job as an energy advisor is to accurately determine what they may be. And so we have to go into the attic, measure the insulation, take photos of it to as part of our backups to say that, hey, we did this inspection, this is how the building is built. So that's the building envelope. And building envelope includes your windows and doors, your foundation wall insulation, your main wall insulation, your attic space and all that. And then a part of that is to do a blower door test to measure how drafty or how airtight your house is. My personal record, it's like 21 air change per hour. And what that means, basically, it's like, a barn. It's very leaky. Heat cannot leave. And a 21 air change, you're probably going to be consuming, a lot more energy than you want to. The building code assumes a home to be about 3 air change. All right. So this one is at 21. So you can imagine how much energy you'll need. After that, we do the blow door test and collect all the data and take pictures of all, site condition and all that. We then create a digital copy of the building in our energy simulation tool. So the type of window, how much insulation, what kind of mechanical system, what kind of ventilation system, what energy source it uses. Is it electricity? Is it oil? Is it propane? Is it natural gas? All that gets modeled, and then we spit out a number, which is in terms of energy consumption and also greenhouse gas emission. Those are the two things that we need to benchmark in order to start thinking about qualifying for the rebate. So as you mentioned earlier, Pierre, to get the 30 points, we need to show that your building after the retrofit would consume 20% less on the energy and also 20% less on the greenhouse gas emission.
So Jack, 30 points, that's if it's 20% above the code, right?
That's
and
correct.
50 points, which is in the middle, is if you get an energy saving 25% above code, and then the 100% points is 40% above code, right?
Yeah, and the 40% above code means that you need to consume 40% less energy and emit 40% less greenhouse gas as per the energy simulation tool.
Yeah, and the code we're talking about, Jack, remind us?
Yes, so the building code that we're referring to, we call it the reference house, and that is the energy efficiency requirement according to the National Building Code of 2015.
Yeah.
National Building Code of 2015. Yes.
Is that the most recent one, the 2015, Jack? Is that what we're talking about?
No, there's 2020 now. We have a 2020 NBC, but the program for MLI Select is referred to the 2015.
2015, okay. Okay, and so again, to determine that, you've got to seal the house and you put pressure in. That's more or less what that energy simulation process is like. Is that correct?
Yeah. So after the site data collection, we enter all that into the software. Part of it, when you mentioned that, it's basically for anyone who's interested in learning what is a blow door test. You could always just, go into one of the search engines and type in blow door test. And yeah, I'm sure you'll find a bunch of YouTube videos to learn about the blow door test.
What do you call it? The blow?
It's called a blower door test.
Blower door test. Okay.
Yes.
But that's what you do essentially, right?
That's correct. We mimic a 33 kilometers per hour wind hitting the building in 4 equal directions. And we want to measure how much air is coming into the building through the blow door, so we can measure the air tightness of the building. I mean, that's pretty technical, but high means bad, low means good in terms of energy consumption. The leakier the building, the more energy you need to spend to keep the house, or the building warm, which is something we don't want because we live in Canada and we have to heat our buildings.
Yep. especially if you live in Alberta. Right now, we've got a snowstorm. It's going to go on for a couple of days. I tell you, the wind is blowing from the north, and I live on top of a hill, so I absolutely get it. Jack, so for an existing property, though, you have to go on site. Or is the owner of the property, the multifamily property, do they have to provide you? I guess if they do, but it's hard sometimes in older buildings, but if they have drawings or any construction details regarding the property, I suppose you would like to see that, or you don't need that?
Oh, it would be extremely helpful. Our charge for that service, it's really dependent on how much information the owners could provide to us in the beginning. So, now you're talking about existing home. So if this was a new home, all we want is the drawing, and we don't even need to go on site and look at the condition or any of that. We just want a detail of how the building's being built. So when we can spend less time on site, then the charge for that service will be less as well.
Now, tell me, Jack, there's another, so I'm assuming, so we've talked about it, MLI, CMHC MLI Select, but CMHC has another program for energy efficiency as well, right? You're familiar with it? I didn't do projects back then that were energy efficient, but do you have any information on that you want to share at a high level about the regular CMHC energy efficiency program?
Yes, so they basically I have a lot of builders in Ontario who build energy efficient homes, and Energy Star is one of the names that you'll know. So you can have an
Yes.
Energy Star logo on a TV and on a computer.
Yes.
I put them on houses. I put them on
Oh,
yeah. So the blue sticker logo that you see, I put them on houses.
but
And
we're talking still apartment buildings, right? Not just
yeah,
principal
yeah.
residences.
You can
Okay.
have high rise and low rise. You can
Okay. Very cool.
there's now that's also a new program, but you can now certify multi-unit residential buildings, the MERB, for Energy Star as well. And basically when they achieve a certain percentage, like Energy Star, which is like 20% better than the building code requirements, they can then have a rebate on their premium. That's one of the programs.
Yeah, I'm just reading the rules here. I've got the guidelines here. It says, so new construction, 10% premium reduction refund. And existing building, overall percentage reduction in energy consumption up to 15%. So yeah, you get some same idea. Like I said earlier, you benefit from underwriting guidelines, more flexibility, which are favorable to the owner of the property. Okay. And Jack, question I'm curious to ask you, I mean, obviously the cost of retrofitting, the older the building, the more expensive it's going to be to retrofit it, right? Did you have a sense of how long the payback, the return on investment of retrofitting an older building? Is it a matter of years? And do you have any data on how quickly you recover your investment by being more energy efficient in your use of the property?
I help. What I do for building owners is that I help them select what's the most cost-effective route to get to their target. So they set a target to me. Let's say I want to hit the highest target, so the 40% reduction, right? What I go through is a optimization study. An optimization study is basically a best bang for your buck study. That's what it's about. And what we do there is we look at all the possible ways to get you that 40%. And my job is to then put it into a sensible way for you to make a decision. So I always say, I don't make decisions for you. I educate you so that you can make an informed and educated decision. And the way we do it is that, where can I spend the least amount of money to get the most energy savings and also most greenhouse gas reduction? So that's really important. So anyone who's out there, I also teach what I do to others because I feel that there's way more of me needed to preserve the 3 homes that I mentioned to you earlier, like way more. There's only about 1,800 of us in Canada. And like I said, there's only 9 of us who are master energy advisors. So I like to have more of us there, like maybe 90 and 900 in the future. So to do that, it's critical that we help the project manager team to understand, where is their low-hanging fruit. And when you look at ways to get to those percentage, the cost could be very high or it could be very cost effective if you do it the right way. So when you ask me about payback, the payback for a typical energy efficient home can go anywhere between 10 to 50 years. It really depends on how you come up with the solutions. And our solution obviously is going to be as close to the 10-year as possible because we understand that cash flow is very important in these investments, and cash flow is extremely important for the builder team. That's all they really, know how to ask in the beginning. The first, they don't know how to ask anything else because that's, the first thing is just price, right? Like how much does it get there? Then I start helping them to look at all different permutations and options out there so that they can then look at different ways to get to the goal without breaking the bank. I mean, I'm an energy advisor. I also understand finance because I'm also like you, a real estate investor. So I understand it from both sides of the table. And that's why I really appreciate what you do and also the program that they're offering. Like, I have never seen such a great program offered.
Well, and that's another conversation, Jack. As a mortgage broker now, I can tell you it's only the beginning. I just finished a webinar previously with somebody that lives in your neck of the woods in GTA about proposing a very concrete solutions. But yeah, there'll be more programs. MLI Select is a good first attempt, but it's not enough. There's going to need to be a lot more. But did I hear, so the payback, you estimate roughly within 10 years is what I heard. Did I hear that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and I appreciate you coming at it from an entrepreneurial point of view, right? I mean, as you said, the economics are always important. What would you say, you were talking about low-hanging fruits. Can you give us a few tips? Are we talking windows usually is where the most loss of heat and energy? What are, if there's an order of a few items that you would say, if somebody has a limited budget, what specific retrofit could they do that would provide the best return on investment? Do you have any idea of that?
Yeah, so the first thing I would recommend for Ontario context is the air source heat pump for space heating and space cooling. The air source heat pump is definitely a winner for this program.
The thermal pump, right? There's thermal pump. I think I was going to say it in French, thermal pump, because I work my teams in French, my brokerage firm. But thermal pump, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So we call it the air source heat pumps.
Okay.
And it's basically the same as we're talking about. So it could produce both heating energy and cooling energy to heat and cool the home or the unit. Yeah, that would be one of the low hanging fruit. And the way it works is that the efficiency of this project of this product, you give it 1 unit of energy for space heating or cooling, and it spits out 3 to 4 units of energy for heating and cooling. So imagine I give you $1 and you return me $4 every time I do that. Wouldn't that be a great deal?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and of course, I'm thinking of my own portfolio here, but next year, the legislation, when it comes to the heating systems, of course, I apologize, I don't have your jargon as technical as yours, but it changes. Next year, I think it's in Canada, all heating systems have to be high energy or highly energy efficient, right? As of last year, is that not the case? Do you know anything about that? Maybe
No,
that's beyond your scope, but
no, I think so. With the new NBC update, the 2020 building code update, we now have to have all of Canada have a national building code, right?
yeah.
National building code has 5 tiers within the national building code. And in Alberta, you guys are starting with tier 1. That is already set in stone for that province of Alberta. For Ontario, we're proposing to start our building code in tier 3. So it's really depends on how each province decides on where their starting point is. So there's 5 of them, and then they kind of pick and choose whether which tier they want us to comply. But the goal is that by 2032 is just 8 years from now, all new buildings needs to be at a net zero level, meaning that they can produce as much energy as they consume. right? That's the target.
Okay, and it reminds me, you just said about in Alberta, your AJAC does work across Canada. You have a team. You and I talked about that. I should mention that, but we'll give Jack's obviously contact info and all of that. That's pretty cool. So the heat source is, I think you use a different word, but the boiler, in my world, it's called the boiler.
Yeah.
It's number one kind of area for saving. And then what after that, is that windows?
Yeah, no, actually, you keep mentioning window. I can tell you, window, it's a great thing to do if you're experiencing like horrible seasonal changes. So when it's
Okay.
really cold or very hot outside, windows will make you feel much more comfortable. Okay,
Okay.
much more comfortable. But they're extremely expensive, and the
Yep.
payback on them is like 80, 100 years. So
Okay. So then
um
what's the next best thing to do in terms of retrofitting after the heating, the boiler or the heating source?
yeah, so then the next thing is the heat pump hot water heater.
Ah, yeah, of course.
So yeah, so there's the heat pump for space heating and space cooling, and then the second one will be a heat pump for hot water heating. Those two are like really, really good. Now, energy efficiency does not always mean more affordable. Let me explain that. In
Yeah.
wait, let me explain that. Okay, in Ontario, electricity is 6 to 10 times more expensive compared to natural gas. For now. Now, in the future, we don't know yet, but for now, that's the case. So when a building is all electric, your operational cost is going to be much more expensive because electricity is more expensive compared to natural gas, right? That's what I mean when I say a more energy efficient building does not mean it's more affordable to operate. That's what how that kind of comes in.
Okay,
So
yeah. Yeah.
so it is really important to have someone like us to explain those options to the building owner so that they know what it, how it can impact their building afterward. Because it's a holistic approach that we have to look into it. Now, okay, so the third low-hanging fruit, this is gonna blow your mind. Low flow faucets.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm in favor of that. I do it in all my buildings, and just to give people an idea, and it's something I talk about in one of my master classes on the cap rates, but yeah, I used to have buildings with 13-liter water tanks at the back. That's the first thing I did, and they come in and they install shower heads and faucet taps and all of that jazz. Yeah, because people need to know, Jack, let's mention that you pay for water coming in and water going out in terms of the sewer. So yeah, no, I'm on top of things when it comes to that. That's the name of the game for sure.
Yeah, and they're not expensive things. They're
No.
not expensive. You go to a big box store, it's on the shelf. You just have to, it's not like a special order. You just get it. And sometimes it's a standard now. So, so they're really, really like low-hanging fruit. And then if
Yeah.
you're asking for other things, stuff like Energy Star qualified appliances, I think they're so readily available now. It's there's no difference. And sometimes you probably get a appliance that's on sale that's also Energy Star qualified, cheaper than the one that's not Energy Star qualified. So, these are some of the low hanging fruit. The last one I'm going to say is energy efficient light bulbs, the LEDs and CFLs, right?
Yeah, I'm all for that. That's what I do in all my buildings. I've done that years ago. Those are the first few things I did. Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. All
Yeah.
right, Jack, anything else about existing property? Because I don't want to switch to newer buildings, which I think is where the way of the future is. We need to build more. But anything else you want to say about existing buildings, apartment buildings?
So existing buildings, one of the things I really encourage the builder and the builder team to do is also focus on making it more airtight, making
Airflow,
it
air
more,
circulation.
yeah. It is actually a negative impact to a building if you like really insulate the building really, really well with you add lots of insulation to it, but they don't take care of the air tightness portion of that construction. It would actually have like moisture buildup, structural integrity issues, indoor air quality issues, because you have a highly insulated building, but very like I'm going to poorly built.
And
So
yeah, go ahead.
don't do that, please.
Yeah. And
To the viewers out there.
it brings me, it reminds me, it's the same thing with pressurizing your buildings, right? That's part of what you're talking about. We all have, there's a heat source and then there's a makeup air furnace that pressurizes the hallways and all of that. And it's important in many older buildings. I've seen a lot of owners, they stop working, they're very old and they don't replace them, but it's super important and it's part of what you're talking about. I have some common sense because I used to be at CMHC's national office and we had a techie guy like you that and CMHC does have some documentation online about that, but yeah, airflow and air circulation, just like in your attic, right? You got to have some airflow there. Okay, anything else about existing buildings before we move on to new construction?
Yeah, so the last thing I want to mention is that after you implement all the upgrades and all the stuff, there is a post visit to go back there and tell CMHC that yes, this builder did do this, they did do that, and then there's another report that has to be written to get the final funding. So there's a post visit required, similar to what we did for the benchmark, but then it should be all new this, all new that, and then we present that package and then you can apply for the final funding.
Yeah, and you and I talked about that before we started the interview. You've got something called the building option package, so BOP, right? That runs. Just tell me, is that runs through the options? If I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's part of your analysis?
Yes,
Can you
that's right.
that document to us briefly?
Yes. So once we go through our best bang for your buck study, we help the owners to settle on the package that they're going to go with, tenders and construction and all that, contracts and stuff, right? So that becomes part of the package we present to CMHC to say that, hey, our intention is to retrofit this building to this new package. And that's the BOP that you're referring to. And typically we want it to be as cost effective as possible because that will be one of the criteria that we would get as a requirement from the building owners.
Okay, and this, so I'm going to challenge you, and maybe I'll need to cut this out of the interview, but would you be open to share an empty one without the address and all of that? Is that something that is proprietary?
No, please, no. I would love, like I said, I teach this stuff and I want more people to learn about it because we need more people out there to help buildings. There's 16 million low-rise residential family homes in Canada alone. And then there's so many high-rise buildings that you're involved. And it's so critical that we get that help and it be available to those people so that they can actually make a difference and actually meet these, energy reduction target and greenhouse gas reduction targets. So no, please, Pierre, do it.
So maybe you can send me one because the one I'm holding, and I'm gonna show it briefly. I folded so we can't see the address because it's private information. But Jack is going to send me a blank one as well as the next document. So, but basically, what that does is he goes through his analysis and then gives a correct me, right? I'm just interpreting what I'm seeing here. In green is what the owner is committing to do in terms of retrofits, and then it tallies up and it tells you for which level of MLI Select, which, the 25 points or 30, 50 or 50 points, sorry, and which level, because there are levels, right? Level 1 is energy efficiency between 20 and 24% lower than the National Energy Code, right? Or NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Then level 2, those levels are pursuant to CMHC MLI Select. Right. Level 2 is between a saving between 25 and 39%, so lower than what code requires. And of course, the level 3 is over 40%, lower than the code. And based on that, you send this to CMHC, what you're going to do, and CMHC will, and in this case, I cannot show you this because it's got, I can do the bottom part, but he will, Jack will sign off on which level, 1, 2, or 3, and put his signature that says that it meets that level of energy efficiency, right? Is that a good summary, Jack?
Yeah, that's a great summary. I mean, you do teach this stuff, so you would be able to explain that very well, which is amazing. One thing I do want to let the viewers know is that there are energy advisors, and then there's energy advisors that are qualified to do multi-unit residential buildings. So I personally hold that designation. So whenever you hire an energy advisor to do this work, just make sure they are also qualified to perform this service, because there's a difference between single family housing and multi-unit residential housing. So that's one of the things that you want to make sure that they are qualified, because if they're not, then CMHC may not approve the report.
Okay, so this is super critical. And Jack, when I teach my course, this is something that I insist on a lot. I obviously insist on the level of professionalism. When you work, in the multifamily world, it's more properties are worth millions of dollars, but it's a specialized world. So from the realtor you're going to work with, the mortgage broker, and of course, I only specialize in larger apartment buildings of 5 or more units. From the lawyer you're going to use, and the lender, everybody is a specialist in multifamily property. So Jack is just or your billing inspector for that matter. And that's something I need to connect you with somebody in your neck of the woods, a great billing inspector that comes to my workshop. And he's not too knowledgeable yet in MLI Select, but yeah, that's super important, Jack, what you said. Okay, let's talk about new construction. The deal, the property that I sent you do an energy report was actually a new construction. It was just under a year old. So you remember it enough that we can talk at a high level,
Yep.
Jack. And when we set up this interview, you told me that you were not required to go on site for that billing, right? And I think the reason you said to me, and correct me, is because it was a brand new building. They were able to supply with all the details, construction details, and the installation and all that with their drawings and all of that. Is that a fair comment?
That's correct. Yes. They saved themselves a bunch of money because they had the documentations that we needed to collect on site if it was not available. So it was great that we didn't have to travel that far to get anything we need. It was all supplied to us in a package, and we're very thankful for that.
Okay, and so that was I was a bit surprised, but it makes complete sense. The building was brand new. It was all leased up, but it was less than a year old. And you got to be careful. By the way, Jack, these certificates, that might be more the underwriting stuff at my end, but how long are they valid for? Is there such a thing as an expiry date for these the certificate of energy criteria attestation? That's what it's called, by the way. Energy. I'm going to fold it again so I don't share energy efficiency
criteria attestation. Yeah. So basically, the way the government sets, on the energy assessment, it's valid the day of the inspection. So whatever I saw the day, and that's what I would model and collect and present. And if the builder did anything, they changed some equipment or whatever afterward, it would not be under my responsibility. It would be under theirs. But the idea is that we need to document how the building will be built, so that they can then assess whether or not, based on the energy simulation, that the proposed building will meet the CMHC criteria, which is really critical here.
Do you have to go back, let's say, just going back to older existing properties, do you have to go back after they completed the retrofits, for instance?
So for the new building, it's something that we would go and actually make sure that all the implementations are done, photograph it, and then we would write a report saying that me or whoever is qualified to do the work has inspected it and see that everything has been completed. And then they would get their, as part of their final submission to get the rebate, they would have that as part of their supporting document, stating that a third party has came and certifies that we have done everything we said we would do.
Okay, so it's not you, it's somebody else, it's a third party.
No, well, we're the third party. I mean,
you are. Okay, so you do go back. Okay, but you said that's for a new building, or what about older buildings we were talking about when they do all the retrofits? And do you have to go back after the fact to attest? Is that you doing that, or a building inspector?
It's not me personally, but a qualified energy advisor that works with me, my team members, my staff.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't mean you personally, but that's somebody from your team, of course.
Yes. And they would also have to be a qualified inspector too. So again, Natural Resource Canada has a list that kind of tells you where if you're qualified or not, but sometimes it's very hard to get to that list. So one of the things that I would ask, if you do, just ensure that you're paying the right person to do the right thing, is ask them like, who is your service organization? Because those are people are overseeing like my work at my, so they get a license from Natural Resource Canada to oversee the energy advisors. So the service organization who they work with would have a record whether or not that they're a qualified multi-unit residential energy advisor. And
that's the key term here, right? Can you say
yeah,
that
yeah.
slowly? That's if you want to hire somebody like Jack, of course I recommend Jack. Now he's done a couple of files for us and I've seen his reports. Like I said, we'll share some samples if you want. Jack is going to send me something that doesn't have an address on it. But it's what kind of a consultant are we looking for with what qualification exactly, Jack? I want to
Yeah,
put a lot of emphasis on that because, like I said,
yeah.
it's a specialized,
Yeah. Well, it's like you, right? Like you have to be a certified broker to get
yeah,
mortgage.
licensed broker, yeah.
Exactly. You got to be a licensed one. And we have to be a certified energy advisor with a multi-unit residential building
Okay.
certification to do this work. And again, I mentioned there's about 1,800 energy advisors in all of Canada to do this work. I'm going to say probably around 100 only are MERB certified.
MERB, multi-unit residential.
Residential building, yeah, MERB. That's the that's the acronym out there. Sorry about that. But yes, so the people I work with, for sure, I will do the same diligence too. Like if they're going in a different province, so if we were to bring them on to help us with these programs, we would also do the same thing. I would call the SO and say, hey, it's Joe Smith, a certified multi-unit residential building advisor. And then they would say, yes, they are. And I would have that on paper just so that everything is clean, it's black and white, and we're very comfortable. Because one thing about finance is that it could get the homeowners in a lot of financial trouble if we don't use the right paperwork, the right people, and right everything. So to me, it's just a due diligence that I really emphasize on everyone that I work with.
No, and that's why I wanted to pause there because I know it's the same as me, by the way. Don't use just any mortgage broker when you go into commercial residential or mere multi-unit residential. You got to be a specialist. It's a different kettle of fish altogether. So very good point. But so Jack, in that particular case, that first file you and I started working on back in Ontario, Southern Ontario, the building was new. It was less than a year old. So that's one thing. So they gave you all the plans, construction details. So you didn't need to go on site. But ideally, you and I were talking about when we set up this interview, ideally, in order to solve Canada's housing crisis, and it's more than a crisis, folks, it's a housing emergency. It's one of the biggest challenges this country is facing right now. I couldn't insist on that enough. Hence the reason why the opportunities are tremendous to invest in apartment buildings. But bottom line, we need to build more. We don't have enough. We're short by over 6 million affordable housing units. Somebody going for a new construction should consult with you upfront before they start building, right? Can you speak to that about that? The folks watching this this interview, at what point should they call on you when they intend to build a new multifamily property?
Usually, I'm actually surprised that you reached out to me because usually most people are architects that I service. So they come to me and say, hey, Jack, I have this project. The design has been completed. Now we're ready to look at how this building is actually going to be built. So construction details and mechanical selection and things like that. And that's when I kind of come in and say, okay, show me how you want to build the building. I want to see the configuration, the orientation, where it's being placed, and then ask questions like, how do you plan to build? So I kind of get that information from them. So ideally, right after the design has been finalized, siting's been finalized, before you get into details on, how thick the wall is, what kind of windows, that's when we should come in and give you that consultation, because I can say, I can build this building very expensively, or it could be super cost effective. You just have to give me a chance to do that for you early on. The later you bring me into the process, the more expensive every decision you'll make and change, it will cost you. So that's the message I want to share with you.
Okay, so let me recap that. So ideally, and like I said, I am working on that, or starting to have these new construction projects, a lot of projects, really exciting time for me. I think for you, Jack. So you and I talked about it, and we'll get together soon enough when I'm in GTA very soon. But I've got a project. I want to build, let's say, a 40-unit apartment building. I've got drawings done by an architect. That's when I want to go and talk to you before there's a nail in any 2x4s or anything like that. That's when I go to you.
Yeah.
That's correct? That's when somebody should
Yeah.
approach somebody,
Yeah.
an energy consultant such as yourself, correct?
That's right. So
Okay.
I help
Yeah.
create some of the permit package for the
Ah.
project. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
like
That's important.
early stage and early
You
in the
help with the permit process, application
I-
process. Wow.
exactly,
Okay.
yeah. That would save you the most money and the least amount of stress being introduced into the program. So really important that I talk to the builder and I talk to the architect with the owners,
Okay.
because this is a very it has to be a holistic approach, because anything that we change could impact your costing, the timeline, and what kind of tray you use, right? So we want to discuss those early on so that those decisions can be made, knowing all your options, and 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 then it will save you lots of time and money.
Okay, that's a very good sound advice. Now, tell me, once you do that, let's say people follow that process you're suggesting, what during construction, are you making spot checks on construction, or do you have, or is just once you've done that work, they call you at the end at completion of construction? Is that what happens? How does that work after that?
Okay, so great question there. It's an optional service that we offer to builders and construction teams, that we will go on site and give them quality assurance assistance. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is that we have to make sure that the building is somewhat airtight. And airtightness is not common sense. It's not second nature to many, many people. So we want to make sure that the details are executed properly. Turning a 2D drawing into a 3D structure takes workmanship. It takes attention to detail. And sometimes the builder doesn't really have the resource to help them get there. And our job is to give them site support, site training, and advice as they go. And we have a very comprehensive program for that. But it's not mandatory. It's something that we recommend, right? But once the building is ready to be occupied, then that's when we go back and then do our site work and inspections and testing like that, so that they can then finalize everything and then get funding.
So in between, it's an optional service that you offer. It's not mandatory. Okay. Obviously, it's a fee for service.
That's correct. Highly
Okay.
recommended.
Okay. No, I would imagine that. You know what I'm thinking now? I had a property in 2020 that had a significant fire. Then they discovered asbestos in the walls and ceilings. And so we ripped it all out, like the shell stayed, but all the windows have been replaced. Of course, now it's not meeting building code. And now we had to, the new code requires air intake. So we had to install ducts. I'm wondering, should I have it attested with, do you think the energy saving was significant that I should send a guy like you have a look? And
It depends, actually. What I always say is send me some drawings and tell
yeah,
me what your target is. And then like consulting, at least for the first hour, it's free with these projects. And
yeah.
then at least I can take a look, and I can, on a high level, give you like our recommendations. And then if you want to engage us, then we'll write your fee proposal and everything, so that you know exactly what's going to cost you, what the services we offer, and how long you would expect for this to be done, and things like that. For me as a business entrepreneur, transparency, and it's really critical. That's what I really strive for in all my dealings. From the get-go, I do what I say, and I say what I do, and at the same time, just being super transparent from the get-go. And to me, that's the one thing that will keep us going for another 40 years. It's been 20 years now. I just want to keep going. So yeah, so it depends, but let us know, send us some drawings, and we can get back to you.
Okay. Well, Jack, this has been very interesting. Anything else about new construction? I mean, it's the same gist, but I think it's obviously less complicated if an energy consultant such as yourself gets involved at the onset versus after the fact. But I mean, either way, it's very beneficial. I mean, we don't have a choice, right? I'm like you. I'm a big outdoorsy guy, hiker, camper, skier, hunter, campers. I do it all, fisherman. We got to do something for Mother Earth, Pachamama, as they say down in South America. So I think the future looks great. And so people, Jack, you're with A&J Energy Consultants. You're in Ontario, but as we said earlier, you have offices across Canada. I'll put your details here. Your website is AJEC, so AJEC.ca. People can find, that's how I found you, as a matter of fact. And you responded immediately, which was unbelievable. I had barely finished putting my info on your website that you got back to me. So the rest is history. But like I said, you offer these services across Canada. You've got a team, and I'll put your detail in this interview as well. Anything else you want to add, Jack?
Okay, so give me 1 minute. There is a huge need for affordable housing and energy efficiency together. And this is a social crisis that we're all facing. And this MLI Select program, it is such an amazing catalyst to help solving this issue. I'm sure during your workshop, you'll talk about all the nitty-gritty details of how to apply and all those criteria. But this program, although it's been like 2 or 3 years old, it is now really starting to gain traction in the GTA area. And I have builders telling me, Jack, be ready. I'm going to do 1,000 of these before I retire. So, if people like them are doing this in a massive scale, I think your viewers should spend at least some hours into the nitty gritty of it, and of course, reach out to you for questions and answers. I'm sure you'll guide them that way.
Well, no, that's we're all part of the same team, so doing the same. But yeah, the potential is tremendous. I appreciate your comment, Jack. As you know, I've got a workshop coming up very soon, and anybody can do this. I'm not gonna lie to you that it's easy. Okay, I own, like I said, a portfolio of 136 stores worth over $24 million. But it can be done. But it's like anything else. It starts with you doing your homework, which I can definitely help you do. But that's not the point of this conversation. Yes. So all right. So Jack, I thank you so much for this interview. We'll give people your contact information, and they can reach out. And like I said, I'll be out in your neck of the woods in the next month, and I'll look you up, and maybe we can grab lunch or something like that.
Love to see you in person.
All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. So if you want to find out what I'm all about, next workshops and all these things and masterclasses, you can go to multifamilyinvestingcanada.com, multifamilyinvestingcanada.com, and learn all about what I'm doing. And if you need my services as well as a mortgage broker, all I do is commercial residential, and I'm focusing on new construction because that's what we need to do to resolve the housing crisis. My email is ppturgeon@maoki.ca. That's but our firm is called Maoki, MAOKI.ca. That's our website. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Canadian Multifamily Investing Insider Blog. Cheers, everybody. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you for your time. Take care, Paul, Pierre.